Bodie,
Here.
Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
Kroll,
Here.
All right. And so is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. This is Kroll. Second, Bodie.
Motion by Kroll, second by Bodie. Discussion, roll call.
Kroll,
Yes.
Bodie,
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have two items on the agenda today. First is item 3.1, and that is to have the update on the police department headquarters. So who's gonna kick us off? Chief, are you kicking us off, or who's starting?
Curtis can kick us off.
Curtis, all right. Curtis, floor is yours.
All right, thanks a lot, Mayor and council members. Appreciate it, the time very much this morning. The planning for our police department headquarters is now at a point where the program for the building and square footage have been defined that for presentation here. So that'll be shared with you today. The architects and construction manager have also developed cost estimates for the project that we will review. Also, from our work session back earlier this spring, the feedback received from elected officials and staff has also been incorporated into the design of the project, and that'll be shared with you as well. So in total, you'll get the overview of the building space, the program, the design, and the cost estimates. We're at a point where we'll need consensus feedback on the council generally from direction that we're going in the right direction and have the confidence to continue to proceed toward the bond referendum on November 3rd. So all the pieces are starting to come together, and we'll need that consensus to keep going. One decision in the presentation today that we will need direction on is the inclusion of the geothermal heating and cooling for the building. That's a decision that impacts the rest of the downstream design here pretty substantially. So our owner's agent and architects will address that in their presentation, but we'll need some direction on go, no go on that. So at the end of the presentation, we'll bookend it with a brief overview of the financing plan. And at this point, we'll turn it over to Angie Fonku from Sidekick, our owner's agent. Also, we've got our architects and construction manager with us today. So the team from OPN and DCI, when we hear from you, if you can introduce yourselves and colleagues that are in the room, that would be great. So Angie, we'll turn it over to you to begin.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us today. You guys have seen me a couple times at least. I think this is the third time in this PD process, but as Curtis said, I have OPN and DCI with me as well. And OPN has been working on this since December. You guys allowed us to bring DCI on in February. So over the last, what I'll call 7 months, we've really been defining the programming needs for this building. So our agenda today, which Curtis kind of talked through, we'll start with the building study recap in 2023 versus today. We'll show you the current building. We'll talk through sustainability, cost, and then what the next steps are. So if we can go to the next slide. And we might have to zoom in everybody on that, but thank you. OPN had been hired in 2023 under a separate contract to do a needs assessment at that time. Keep in mind, you guys were potentially looking at reusing the site at the existing PD or still finding a new site. So the site had not been identified at that time. Also at that time, you were looking at a 20-year growth plan. So these numbers correlate to that. We were at 74,148 square feet in 2023. Over the last 7 months with our consultants, including Redstone, which is our police consultant, we have looked at all the spaces. Obviously now you have a site. We were given the direction to look 40 years out instead of 20, just so that we do this building once and we account for some growth within the existing building. None of us know what policing is going to look like in 5 years or 10 years, let alone 20 or 40. So this allows us for some flexibility in the building without you guys having to come back and add space at this time or at a later time. So you can see where we're at after all of our work is we're at 94,943 square feet. So we're about 20,000 square feet higher. If you look through this, a lot of it is in the garage and support. So a big change from the 2023 till now is that was programmed for 30 vehicles. We're now programmed for 40. In talking with Rob Moore, he actually has a need for, I believe he told us 60 at one point, but that just doesn't, that's not feasible to build parking like that. So operationally, they will be comfortable with 40. That old number was 30. So there's a major change there. You'll also see that we added 3,300 square feet of shell space. So that's your future growth space that will already be in the building just based on the configuration of the building. We can allow for some extra shell space that today we won't build out. We'll just add it into the building, but it won't have like carpet and paint and those sorts of things. There won't be a use day one. The other thing like shared space, exercise room increase, some of these, all the spaces increased just a little bit because we went from a 20-year count of officers to a 40-year count of officers. So you'll see that all the spaces grew just a little bit based on those numbers happening, which you'll see down below here. So square footage wise, we're at 94,943. That includes a shooting range, the garage, additional shell space, plus all the operational space that the police department needs. We thought it would be helpful to show a comparison of the new police stations that have been built around the metro. These are ones that either DCI and myself or OPN and myself, somehow all three of us have been on these, not necessarily together on any of them actually, but we've all been involved in these somehow. So Waukees building is 70,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet of that is shell space for future. But today they have 47 sworn and support officers. Their total future will be 80. They're on a 20-year growth plan. Not everybody on here is on a 20-year growth plan except for Urbandale. So Altoona has 60,000 square feet. They also have 10,000 square feet of shell space that today they're not using. And they have 48 sworn and support staff with a future of 88. Clive obviously is a little bit different just because of the geographics of Clive. But that's 25,000 square feet. They have 36 sworn and support. And then their plan, which was not a 20-year, it was more just based on population. Their plan is 50 is the max that they'll have in that building. Urbandale, as you see above, were proposed at 94,943. Today, Rob has 70 sworn and support staff. So he's the largest department today by far, and he's currently in just under 24,000 square feet. So I don't know where they're all fitting today, but that is what he is in. And the 40-year plan is 100 sworn and support. Any questions on that slide? Comments? Okay. If not, I'll turn it over to Danielle, and we can take all questions at the end too, whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So I'm going to start by walking you through the site, then into the plans and the renders. So as you'll all remember, the site at 100th and Douglas, as we've looked at this and started to lay out where and how the building fits on the site, we've got the railroad tracks that are to the northeast corner. We're looking at putting the entry to the site for both the public and the secured parking for all of the patrol officers on that south end of the building off of Dennis Drive. And then you can see how we're sort of stacking the building up from west to east with range, garage, and then I'll call it the administrative portions of the building to the furthest east. That lighter green section that you're seeing is the detention for the site, which is the required amount of detention. And what we're trying to do is orient the building and the spaces on the site so that we could take advantage of having some of that natural landscape to both enhance kind of the pedestrian experience, but also the views from the building itself. I think the next slide then will go into the plan itself. I won't go through all the spaces in detail, but again, you can see to the left of your plan is the firing range. In the middle is that 40 parking stall garage that Angie was referencing and the support spaces that go with that. And then on the first floor of the administrative portion of the building, we've got processing areas, public lobby, evidence processing, locker rooms, and then primarily patrol-related spaces to the north. On the second level, then the remainder of our program, so there's additional public spaces in that community/training room. We've got the criminal investigations in the kind of orange or peach color. And then we've got the police department leadership and admin in that kind of teal color with all of the support services to the north of them. The rest of that space then that's in kind of the light cream color is fitness break area and those related areas. And then that big white box that's at the top left there is that shell space that Angie was referencing that's about 3,400 square feet. So with that, I think, do we want to pause and let you guys ask any questions at all on the plan and site plan? Okay, we'll keep going. So we're going to show you
Can I
a
ask
couple.
one question? I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
just one
Yes.
quick question. I couldn't get unmute quick enough. The firing range, is that, I've seen the Altoona firing range. Is that similar in size to what Altoona has currently in its?
It is similar in size.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 12-lane, 50-yard, just like Altoona. We'll have a little bit of variation in like the training spaces. It could be a little bit larger or smaller, but yes, the range itself is 12-lane, 50 yards.
Okay, thank you.
Did you mention,
I've got to, oh, go ahead, Pat.
I was just asking if you mentioned the overall dimensions here. I missed that somehow.
Of the
The
total
overall
square feet?
No, like how many feet long and how many feet
Oh,
deep?
Oh, Aaron, do you happen to know offhand the overall building dimensions?
I don't have them offhand, but I can get them quick.
Okay, it's not a big deal. I was wondering if it got mentioned. It's just a curiosity. Move on, sorry.
And I think Thomas is on, so we can keep going and Thomas can probably pull those for us and we can circle back around.
Okay,
I've got a quick. I'll go. What is the offices around the firing range?
So most of the spaces around the firing range are things like, thank you for zooming in. There's a conference room that will be used for gathering people and doing a little bit of training. There's some gun cleaning and an armory, storage for munitions and weapons. Part of that is then observation space off of the lobby. We also have some general storage and then the mechanical spaces associated with it.
Related and appropriate for sound and everything.
Yes, and all uses that are very specific to the range itself.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question is, can anyone tell us how the dimensions of the firing range compare to what we have now at the old facility?
Yeah, your range today is, I believe, is it, Rob, help me out, I can't remember, is it 3 or 4 lanes currently?
The current range is 3 lanes, 25 yards.
Right. So it's double the length, so they can shoot long guns in it. And then with the 12 lanes, obviously that grows their capacity for the number of officers that can be training. This is also width that allows them to pull props and additional vehicles in for other training operations to happen within that space, and is what's recommended ideally to be able to allow for that.
yeah,
Thank you.
this size allows it, this size allows it to be a tactical range. So lots of good options that they would have.
Any other questions on the plans? Okay, we're gonna show you a couple of views of the building, primarily from the northeast and the southeast corner. So these are the most visible corners of the building. What you're looking at right here is the southeast corner of the building. So this is where our main public entry to the building is. Many of the things that we heard from you all for feedback in the visioning and during aesthetic preference around wanting to have a building that's welcoming, that has a warm feel, that utilizes natural materials, and even that focuses on some landscaping that takes advantage of native native plantings and keeps a natural landscape and feel have all been taken into account here. Aaron, do you want to go ahead and go to the northeast corner as well? So the northeast corner, then this is what you would see from the corner of 100th and Douglas. Again, we want to make sure that this holds the presence. It announces what it is on that corner. Also takes advantage of some of that natural landscaping so that as we're welcoming pedestrians onto the site and around the site, that we've created some buffer between them and the building itself. And then also creating some differentiation between this north end of the building and then the south end where we've got the main entry. Any questions on the images?
So far, I really like them. When you showed the initial like site layout, are we contemplating any public art on the intersection of 100th and Douglas?
100th and Douglas. It's a great question. We've not spent a lot of time talking about it, but I think that's absolutely something that could be accommodated in the future.
Okay. Because I think it would be a really great place for something substantial
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bridget,
and,
that's,
and meaningful.
yeah, that's a great comment, Bridget. On the other public safeties that we've worked on, the city's actually taken our plans and put out an RFP for local artists. So
Okay.
you see that inside of Clive's facility, but like Altoona has a big mural on the outside, and Waukee is going to have a piece out front. So they've been commissioning local artists. So we're happy to work with Curtis and David on that.
I'm not sure if Jan's on here, but I'm sure she'd jump at the chance for a public art venue.
Okay.
I had a question when we,
I'm on here,
oh.
by the way, Bridget, so, yes.
Oh.
I'm in money, I'm ready, let's go.
I just had a question because when we did the visioning earlier, these are just absolutely beautiful images. There was some concern expressed about windows. And I just kind of wanted to make sure that's all been taken into account and that we're feeling like this is still a safe facility for the people inside. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's a great question. Yeah, so we've focused the windows at the front entry where we've got public zones, and what we've done to protect those is created that plaza with a wall condition around it, so that gives a buffer to the building so that somebody can't drive into it or up to it or even get close to it. We've also continued that buffer down the side then, so we'll have a detention pond that's there, which means it's not going to be approachable for vehicles or pedestrians. And the base of the building is much more solid with punch windows, and then the taller windows happen on the second level where it's a little bit more protected from anybody that can get near the building.
And
Thank you.
Danielle, I don't know that it's clear if they haven't been in the discussions, but can you talk about what the panels are on the second floor, that's not just
Yeah,
grayed out
absolutely.
windows?
Yep.
Okay.
So what we've got for materials right now that you're seeing at the base of the building and off to the left, we're looking at use of a stone material, so a very kind of civic material. You'll see what we've got, we'll call it wood look at columns and some deck to provide some warmth and natural material that you all were interested in seeing. And then as Angie was noting on the upper level where you're seeing some of those vertical panels that look like a darker color, we're looking at something more like a metal panel on those locations. Any other questions before we move on?
Danielle, I do have the dimensions that were asked for earlier. If we want to go back to the site plan real quick. Overall, if you just kind of drew just a big square over that whole first floor, it's about 280 feet square, a little more or less in each dimension. The admin kind of portion of the building, that two-story portion, is about 125 feet wide and 285 feet long. There's some ins and outs there, but a good kind of metric is the 120-foot wide dimension on that front elevation, where about half of that is really back of house, that purple portion there, and then the right half would be kind of that public access. So that image that you saw of that front entry is about, it's between
Yeah.
60 and 70 feet wide.
Yeah.
Gives it some nice visual presence for public who are approaching the building to be able to clearly identify where the entry is and where the public portions of the building are.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Okay, I think with that then, Erin, we'll keep moving. We did want to talk about a couple of the specific sustainability features from our session with you all. Again, we at that point in time talked a little bit about how we use the framework for design excellence and the 10 basic overall categories that kind of capture all the things within that. We asked you to help us prioritize the things that were important to you. And at that point, you helped us identify the fact that how we could look at energy savings was incredibly important, how we think about a high performing building as far as the building envelope was important, and then many of the site aspects were important to you. So those, again, you've seen some of how those are being incorporated in the images, but we've got a list here on this next slide that also goes through all of the different facets that we're taking into account. So I referenced the detention pond and stormwater management on site with native plantings. We've also are integrating lighting and thermal controls for the facility, as well as we'll talk about when we get into costs, geothermal and solar options, as Curtis was also referencing at the beginning. We are showing the potential for EV charging and pedestrian bike racks at the front of the building. We've got access to daylighting and views. That's important for and related to wellness. That's lower on the list. We are incorporating a storm shelter in this facility. And then we're trying to maintain connection to outdoor spaces in a variety of locations around the building for the officers. We've talked about how we're accommodating future growth, looking at material efficiency and use of natural materials. Some of that material efficiency just comes in how we detail it and bring materials to the site. And then we also take a hard look at indoor air quality. So how we designate specific zones within the building to capitalize on making sure that we're controlling the quality of the air that the officers are breathing. And then last but not least, wellness, and of course, the pedestrian connections in, around, and through the site. With that, I will kick it over to Michael to go into our cost review.
Hey, good afternoon. So Michael Steen, DCI Group Vice President here. I've got Adam Byrne on as well. He's our Senior Project Manager on this. Previously, we had introduced Nick Bruck. He's our Project Executive. He had a conflict today, so he was not able to make this. What you see in the package here, if you want to click to the next slide, we've got 3 different budgets put together here for a few different options that I wanted to roll through with you guys. This first one here is kind of what we're considering the base budget. It is the difference between the 3 really comes down to the mechanical systems, how we're cooling and heating the space, and then the electrical system, how we're providing power to the space. So this would be a more conventional system for those, more commercial conventional system for the HVAC, as well as just, the typical power being provided from the utility provider. So this budget reflects a hard cost. What we call hard cost is really all the direct construction items that go into the project, the stone, the brick, the steel, all those things, of roughly $40 million. And then we have some costs below the line, which are everything else that goes into building that. We're continuing to carry some contingencies. So we have a design contingency that we carry at this stage in the project. As this is still pretty early on, obviously decisions are still being made. We're still fleshing out items on the site as well as inside the building. So we carry a bucket of contingency, excuse me, where those dollars will likely filter up into the scope up above. We just don't know quite where yet. Or it starts to lower as we get more and more defined into the construction documents. So by the time we're ready to go out to bid, that design contingency line will be a 0, and it'll either have filter up above or will be just reduced and go away. The construction contingency line will continue to remain. It's a percentage of the construction cost, with the intention that we don't know what might pop up as we get into construction. There's going to be some unknowns, whether it's from the site itself or things we're learning as we get into construction, that contingency is there to accommodate those things, so we're not coming back and asking for additional budget. And then we're also carrying a little bit of escalation, just knowing we're 6 months or so away from wanting to send this out to bid. Prices may continue to increase as we've seen obviously over the years. We want to make sure we're accommodating for that. So again, those will either filter up above that escalation piece, or we'll just continue to maintain that and hold our line items up above to be kind of true to today's dollars. The rest of the stuff in here is management costs, design. We've got the FF&E, which is the furniture, the fixtures, the equipment, things that need to go into that, fitness equipment, all those things are carried within this budget here. Questions on this one before I flip to the next option?
Michael, just wanted to clarify that this is fully solar ready. So the
Thank you,
roof and the
yes.
electrical are fully solar ready here. This does not have any solar panels in it, but fully solar ready. So.
Correct. Yep. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. You want to flip to the next?
I have a
Sorry,
question about
go
that,
ahead.
and it might be a city person that needs to answer it. So when we went back and retrofitted the Public Works facility, were we not solar ready? Does that question make sense?
John Larson, I think you'd be best to answer that if you're on here.
Yes, I'm on. No, we were not solar ready at the time. We had to convert everything to be ready for the solar.
Okay, so will we be getting bid alternates for solar?
Yeah, so that's the next
Okay.
couple slides.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, we're excited about that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, on that note, let's head to the next one here. Is this the next or is this the last one? Okay, there you go. Thank you. So this one has the top read. So the change in this one is adding geothermal in lieu of the conventional HVAC. And again, when I say conventional, we're talking about air handling units up on the roof. And then we've got boxes throughout the project that then kind of either reheats the air, conditions the air, or adds variable volume so that we're pushing more air or less. This option is the geothermal, which would likely be located underneath the parking lot just due to space, and would provide all your heating and cooling for the space. So this puts that bottom line cost at about $59 million. Again, it's solar ready. So this option does not include the solar, just being ready for solar for a future ad.
Michael Curtis here. Could you just briefly talk about why this decision on geothermal is important at this stage of the design?
Yep, that's a great question. So there's quite a bit of factors that need to go into the geothermal. Obviously, one is the space of wells. So we need to put either vertical or horizontal wells into the site that basically sends pipes down to the cooling water or to the water table to cool that water and bring it back up. And that just takes some space and planning. Likely, again, it will go underneath the parking lot. There's got to be some features for where those wells sit that needs to be above ground. So there's going to be some space there. We have to have a vault in the ground and some electrical and things like that ran out to it. And then obviously pipes ran into the building. It also modifies what you have for mechanical space. It modifies quite a bit if we are putting going back to the conventional and doing something like cooling towers. Those need a space to sit on your site, need to sit outside. Those could potentially go away with something like geothermal. So it does impact the site. It also impacts your spaces within the building a little bit because we'll have to modify space need for mechanicals depending on which system we go forward with. So it's quite a bit of work for OPN and their consultants once that decision is made to then try to reverse or do that as an alternate is quite a bit of additional design work. It would be pretty challenging.
Thank you. And could you briefly just touch on the advantage, disadvantage, and then the estimated payback period, please?
Yeah, I can hit a little bit, and then OPN, feel free to speak up. I know we saw something, Aaron, on the payback. I don't know if I had a chance to review that, so I'll maybe look to you guys to speak on that. But certainly the advantages of the geothermal is going to be your cost for usage down the road. Obviously, your utility costs are significantly less, if not completely reduced from a cooling capacity and heating capacity needs. You do have more systems that sit outside the building with these geothermal wells that I talked about. They would have to go underneath your parking space, most likely just due to the configuration of the site. So future down the road modifications to those systems would probably result in some parking lot needing to be removed and or replaced. Those systems should be good for a very long time, 20+ years before you have to get into that, even longer, I would assume. But that would be your minimal. The interior, you do have a different system to maintain. I would say most companies now, from a mechanical contractor standpoint, have the abilities to maintain these systems, but they are a little bit more specialized, I'd say, than your conventional HVAC. So sometimes parts and pieces can be a little harder to come across and take a little bit of time. And sometimes you need a specific contractor that's, I'd say, more seasoned and working on those systems. As far as ability to cool and heat, that they should be able to maintain just like any other system nowadays. Aaron, you want to speak a little bit, or Danielle, on that
Sure.
payback period?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly a geothermal system is going to be a lot more efficient overall in operation. We're looking at, based on other projects that we've done with a similar size and scale, that it's probably somewhere in the range of a 15-year payback period for this system.
And what's anticipated is the life of the system.
Yeah, go ahead, Danielle, if you have something you want to add. I'd
Feel-
say once we've installed here recently, I think you have a minimal of 20 years on these systems. I think they can be substantially longer. But I'd say you have a minimum of 20 years before you're probably doing maybe more significant maintenance than your just routine maintenance on these.
Thank you.
Just one thing to chime in on, kind of on that maintenance side of things. The wells themselves tend to have a lot longer lifespan than any of the above ground components. The things that tend to fail after 20 or 30 years are typically some of the distribution systems, the actual kind of the boxes and heat pumps above ground. It is, and the ones that we've done, and obviously haven't been around for 30 years to see how they live, but the wells are usually fairly stable across the life of the building on a 40-year kind of time frame.
That's a great point, Thomas. And with any mechanical system, you're going to have parts, pieces, and things that you're going to need to maintain and replace within that, I'll say 20 and 20+ year time frame.
And generally with the geothermal system, because you're using the well field, you end up with smaller, more units, more spread throughout. So a lot of times when we would say you get to that 25, 30-year time frame where you're starting to look at that, it's not a whole system replacement. Usually you can start to stage those as well, because the geothermal base is relatively stable and stays. You talk about, you can start to implement that in a multi-year replacement package that I can look at replacing 5 units a year throughout the building. So you're not taking down the building as a whole, like with the traditional system of if I have to replace an air handling unit after 25 years, that's a very major piece of equipment that has to be done. It's one big thing and it takes more time. Whereas a geothermal system tends to use smaller units spread throughout, and that distribution allows you a little bit more flexibility of how you look at the replacement and being able to space that out over a number of years.
Gonna go to the last one, Michael?
Yep. So the last one here is geothermal with a full solar array. So when I say full solar array, this is anticipated to be about a 100 kilowatt system that would essentially cover most, if not nearly all, your electrical use intended for the building. Now, that's still pretty variable at this point while we still continue to work through design and systems. There's a lot to understand there on what that may be. Likely that array would sit on top of the parking garage, and I think likely anticipate covering pretty much that entire parking garage roof would be the likely scenario for a system like this. So that add is included in here along with the geothermal for a total estimate of 61 million. And then maybe if you want to flip to the next slide, this provides a good comparison just kind of those three separate options.
Yeah, and I kind of to echo Michael's comments about geothermal, that's a decision that is needed because that really impacts our site and we don't want to be designing two different ways. So that's a decision that needs to be needed. But the solar could easily be an alternate unless you guys want the full array to start with, but that could easily be an alternate at like 200 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts, and 600 kilowatts as we get to bid day. So that's an easy one to add. The geo's just not. So that's why we presented it this way to you.
Yeah, correct. Angie makes a good point. You don't have to cover the entire electrical service. It can be a partial 25, 50%, 75%. Those are options that can be provided. And to Angie's point, this is a alternate. This can be an alternate, a much easier alternate at bid day than something like a geothermal system.
In fact, I'll just,
apologies,
oh, go ahead, Joe.
You may have already covered this. Can you summarize the difference between solar ready and full solar array?
Yeah, I would say solar ready means we're down to the point where we just don't have the arrays up on the ceiling or up on the roof, excuse me. You know, we'd have to bring the arrays themselves, set them on the roof, and bring that connection down to your inverter, which basically transfers the power from one type to the next so it can be used within the building. Everything else should be there and ready. We just don't have the arrays themselves out there and installed on the rooftop.
Got it.
Yeah, Michael, I can probably help add just a little bit on this from the architectural side. So when we say solar ready, it means that we're calculating any of the roof structure to be able to carry that solar. Usually we'll have pathways that we plan that run from wherever our main electrical is to a access point on the roof. There's usually a secondary panel and transfer setup that is put into place. Pretty minimal cost at the beginning when we're doing that initial setup. But that gets you that ability to say then anytime in the future, even if we go through and we put these as an alternate and we don't take anything, coming back in 5 years after and saying we want to implement them now, the structure is there, the pathways are there, the transfer pieces are there, so that all you're adding at that point is the array and the connections, but everything in the building is already ready to accept that.
Thank you all. We wanted to make sure that the mayor and council were able to see the estimates on all of these scenarios. The staff recommendation to, as we have throughout the entire project, plan to have the solar array as an add alternate at bid time so that we can make that decision. We'll talk about that a little bit more when I have some closing comments on the financing. But just to clarify, the bottom line is that option to install the solar is there, and it really gives you maximum flexibility from the deciding to do it or not, as well as the actual size of the system, and in fact, the timing.
So I believe that concludes our presentation. So we would be up for any comments, questions, further discussion that you guys have. Curtis, do you think we didn't miss anything? I don't feel like.
I don't think so. It'd be good to make sure that we get any questions or comments or feedback from the council members and mayor now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw there you've accounted for future growth. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is there space, to grow horizontally or vertically, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, so
go ahead, Danielle.
jump in if I miss anything here, Angie. So when we talk about growth and flexibility in facilities like this, where we're planning for an extended timeline, 40 years, we like to look at it in several different ways. One of those is through building flexibility into the facility as we build it so that it is sort of future ready, we call that future proofing, if you've heard that term. So that we've got spaces that are flexible, they can convert from one use to another use. So a good example or an easy example to understand is maybe a small conference room can convert to an office or vice versa. That's one way we handle it. We also build some growth into the spaces themselves. So there may be some additional either office or conference spaces that we know are planned into and built into the build out on day one. And then sort of the furthest reaching level or layer of that is something like what we've done here with the shell space, which basically gets us out beyond the point at which we can predict what might happen, but allows us some flexibility to be able to utilize that space in some way in the future that we just don't know what that might be today.
Perhaps this is a question for the chief, but just trying to understand how we came to the conclusion that 40 years out, we'd be looking at 100 officers. Just wondering what kind of calculations we did on the growth of our footprint and its population, or whatever we may have done to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. Can you hear me? I haven't spoke yet today, so let's make sure everything's working. We do a calculation now by population is how we figure out how many officers we need, and we do that just as a side comment. We run that very lean compared to others. We extended that out to that 40-year time frame, and then we actually took a few officers off the top of that. So I think when you run it out there that far, it's actually using the calculations that I normally use. I think we were probably like 110 if I remember right, but we dropped that down to about 100 because we think technology advancements and things like that will help efficiency and effectiveness in policing, whereas you're probably not going to grow as quickly as we have in the past, just because of those things. So trying to calculate that in a little bit. So that's how we came up with that 100 number for 40 years out. And I think it's a very accurate number. I'm very supportive of that number. I think that it would accurately portray what we may be at. And, it will depend a little bit obviously on the growth of the city, right? So if annexation, how aggressive that happens, and just growth, right? If populations start to stabilize in the United States, where we're not growing at the rate that we have been over these years, there's some people that are saying that, populations are not going to grow as fast. Families aren't as big, they're not having as many children. Those types of things all factor into the 40 years from now. So it is a little difficult to do. I would mention that shell space, we were squaring off the building, and it made sense to do that. And from an architectural standpoint and cost wise, just to make that a square building, rather than if you bring that the bottom is not as the top is not as big as the bottom, right? So it didn't make any sense to do that when we started early into this process. And it's like, I realize there's a few more square feet there, but it makes more sense and probably saves us money in the long run by not trying to take out that 3,500 of shell space and moving that roof line back. It just made sense to do it that way when we were looking at it at the beginning, and OPN could probably talk to that a little bit more. But I think it's very accurately projecting where we're going to be at that 40 years out.
And one quick thing to add on to the chief is that number that's referenced in the presentation includes civilians. That's not just police officers. That's all in. So it's not 100 police officers. It's essentially 100 employees.
Right. And that's what the 70 number is too. So because we are at 70 counting civilian staff. So that 70 number that you saw earlier, in comparison to the other cities, that's civilian staff and officers. We have 9 civilian staff right now.
And do we know anything about how we compare to West Des Moines? I didn't see that on the numbers. I saw Waukee and Clive and maybe one other community, but I don't think we saw anything bigger than us.
Altoona.
We just did new buildings because it was easy to get the square footage. I can call the chief in West Des Moines and get that information, but I don't know. Rob might know how many officers he has, but I can figure out the building stuff too, but we can make that call.
I was just kind of curious to see what they were working with since they're larger than we are. Just wondering if there's some kind of scaling that happens as you hit a certain critical mass of population.
Right. And I think probably West Des Moines could be compared, but also Ankeny. They have a newer facility than West Des Moines does. And West Des Moines has just added on to their facility recently, last couple of years here. So, but that Ankeny would be a good comparison as well.
So Aaron, we do have that. I just wasn't able to verify square footages, but the body count. Oh, and Aaron, that was only sworn officers though, so it's not apples to apples. So we can get you both of those things.
I'll just add on Ankeny's that, that facility was built in 2006 and opened in 2008. And they're planning additional space, additional parking, and they're running, they were running into some mild site planning issues at the time. So I think another reason to contemplate the longer time horizon is construction costs seemed very expensive then. But nothing compares to construction of a facility like this post-pandemic. So Ankeny's facility is going to be expanded. At least that was the plan as of 16 months ago.
Good to know. Well, just one more thought. I'm assuming that as you do the calculations related to sizing of the HVAC, the mechanical, the geothermal, you'd be able to give us recommendations related to solar so that anything we were doing with respect to solar would be sized right to complement the geothermal system.
Absolutely. Yes, we take all of that into account as we're going through the calculations, and as we get further into design, we'll be able to give you more detail on that. And that's usually what helps inform if we, Angie, Michael, and others have referenced, if we determine sort of cutoff points for the alternates of what we want, we'll use the actual building calculations to help inform that.
Great.
Are there any other questions or comments from mayor and council members?
Yeah, David or Curtis, what decisions will need to be made for purposes of the bond referendum?
So that one of the next things that'll come to the council table, Joe, will be the approval of the ballot language and moving forward with the official with that official language, and then setting the date, obviously, on November 3rd. So that'll be the next big step that comes to the council.
Will we need to identify one of these budget figures?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I'll just mention some points now, and mindful of the next item on the agenda here too. So city manager's office and finance department will follow up with a detailed memo that explains all of the financing path for the project. It's more detailed than we would want to take just over this lunch and learn, but we'll follow up with a memo. What we're doing is really focused on providing value in the project, so delivering as much utility for the department and community as a price that's as efficient and reasonable as possible for the community members. And Finance Director Nikki Lamb has worked with Travis Squires, our financial advisor at Piper Sandler, and they've developed a model that could finance the basic project you saw with the geothermal inclusion without a need to raise the debt service levy. So that's a very important model that they were able to come up with. That would not be inclusive of the full solar array, but the basic project with the geothermal, there's a way to get to that without raising the debt service levy. And so then components that could add additional cost obviously need to be considered carefully, which is why preserving that add alternate option in the bidding process is important for projects like the solar array, so that we can make that decision when the time is right. So that'll give us maximum flexibility to deliver that high value project, but that also keeps the tax rate steady for the taxpayers. But yes, when it comes time for that, for the bond language, we're going to have a determination on what that upper limit is on the budget.
All right. Anything further on this?
I guess, Mayor, basically just need that general consensus that we're on the right track as far as site and building design and inclusion of that geothermal. If there are questions, comments, concerns about that, we would need to know now. Otherwise, OPN, DCI, and Angie working together with us will continue to move that forward, barring anything unforeseen.
Okay. Any comments or concerns at this point, I think, from the council on that part?
I think it's a good idea to move forward with the geothermal and solar ready concept.
Yeah,
Okay.
same here, and I do like the design.
I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Good
Bridget,
feedback.
Amy, further
Yeah.
comments?
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right, I do too. I think it looks fantastic, and I think a lot of thoughts gone into this. I appreciate everybody's hard work on this so far. I think it's very well planned out so far, from what I can tell. And Chief, if this is the meeting, I'm going to rely on you a lot too. That this is going to meet what you're expecting for our city for generations to come yet. So I know it's a lot of like a crystal ball. I get that, and I understand the difficulties in trying to do that. But I think it sounds like to me that we've planned as well as we possibly can, given all the contingencies and what could happen in the future. So.
Yeah, and we didn't get into a lot of the detail on the interior, but the design team has built in a lot of flexibility in that interior. So when things change down the road, 10, 15, 20 years from now, spaces can be changed with minimal costs to accommodate, an area that needs to be used for some different type of policing that we just can't see right now, or an increase in staff in a certain area that maybe weren't there. I think all that is readily built into this project, and I'm very pleased with the way it's going so far.
Yep, absolutely. I think you've hit on flexibility is the key. We can't predict what may happen in 10, 20, 30 years, but at least if we have the ability to pivot and we have the facility that will be able to pivot with us, then we can do that. So. All right. Thank you, everybody, on that part. Thanks for all the input and the work so far. Then we will move on to item 3.2, which is the watershed management plan presentation. So, Kristen, are you going to handle that?
Yep. Good afternoon. Curtis, do you want us off of here? Sorry. Are you done with us?
You are all free to go. Thank you. We'll follow up on the follow-up.
You can stay, Angie, if you want. Be probably.
I might learn something about the watershed projects. I wouldn't be opposed. So, all right.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
guys.
Thank you,
for your
everybody.
time.
Bye.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. About a year and a half ago, the Polk County Soil and Water Conservation District offered to do some free floodplain management assessments particularly for the folks in the Walnut Creek. And so we took them up on that offer, and Cassie Jewell and Robert Austin from the Polk County Water Resources Group are here to present their findings and what they developed for us. If we've got a little time at the end, I'll give you a real quick update. Some of these projects we also were kind of developing on a parallel track and got a few updates for you on some stuff that's already in progress too. But I will turn it over to Cassie and Robert to take it away.
Thanks, Kristen. I want to make sure, first of all, can you guys see my screen? Okay, excellent. So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. I want to thank you all for your time and the opportunity to share our Urbandale Walnut Creek floodplain assessment. We're excited to work with you all to expand on the progress you guys are already making on some of the stormwater management that Kristen was just talking about. Just a quick overview of the Walnut Creek watershed. Some of you may or may not know that a good portion of the urban portion of the watershed falls within Urbandale. So that means that you guys have a good amount of responsibility and opportunity to have some large impacts within the watershed, whether that be water quality, water storage, floodplain resiliency, and just long-term sustainability of the watershed. Cassie Drewell, my partner in crime here, who is the outreach coordinator for the water resources team. We're going to walk you through this pretty quick here. We're just going to go over how we kind of got to this point, some of our findings, and some of the opportunities we will have moving forward. Let's see here. Okay. So I'll begin with a little bit of context. Urbandale is a member of the Walnut Creek Watershed Management Authority, and over the last couple of years, that WMA has been working on a 5-year implementation plan. And through the development of that plan, there were 5 goals set for each of the member communities. 2 of those goals are much more quantifiable than the others. So those are the goals that we kind of concentrated on when building out this assessment. Goal number 1 is holding water on the landscape. And goal number 2 is the restoration of floodplain acres and or linear feet of stream restoration. So for the city of Urbandale, there is a 5-year goal of 25 acre feet of water storage on the landscape, and to restore a combination of 80 acres of floodplain or about 6,500 linear feet of stream. I would like to thank you all because you were the first community who has allowed us to do this assessment. You guys were one of our targeted cities because of the impact you guys have within Walnut. So you guys helped us kind of generate a model moving forward that we'll be able to use for some of these other communities. So thank you for that. Within the planning process, we integrated some of the previous studies that you guys had done that were applicable to the floodplain assessment. And we use some of that information also to generate this assessment for you. So what the plan ended up becoming, a lot of these assessments and reports we've kind of noticed over the years are pretty heavy-handed with some of the technical jargon. They can include a lot of excessive data and can at times make it a bit cumbersome for some of the decision makers to digest that information and actually use that information to make some decisions. So we wanted to kind of cut through some of the what we're calling fluff and kind of break down right into the details of how we can achieve some of these goals through work within the floodplain. We provided a straightforward and easy to use assessment. It gets directly to the points. Within the assessment, we've got some low-level concepts that include location, sizing, potential costs, and how much of these Walnut WMA goals that we'll be achieving through some of these practices. So included in the assessment are some practices such as vegetation management, whether that's prairie or woodland restoration, stream restoration, holding water on the landscape. So I'm going to let Cassie talk through some of those practices within the assessment.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm going to quickly go through a couple examples of the projects that we identified as potential ways that Urbandale could meet the goals of the Walnut Creek 5-year plan for floodplain management, as well as holding water on the landscape in order to prevent future stormwater runoff. So one of those ways is to do prairie restoration. And we focused a lot of our recommendations based on property that the city of Urbandale already owns, so within your city parks. And like Rob mentioned, we also went through some previous assessments that were completed for the city of Urbandale related to some of these types of projects in the parks. For example, in 2017, the city of Urbandale had an assessment done on Walnut Creek Regional Park and some of the projects that could be done in there. So we prioritized two areas in particular at Walnut Creek Regional Park that we thought were suitable for prairie restoration. And we did this based on a visual assessment last fall. We drove around and took a note of areas that had some native plants already established versus some that maybe had majority natives at one point, but have slowly been encroached with some other non-native species and could use, an update. So we have a couple areas that we thought would be easy for the city to restore and manage because of the open space, as well as the nice fire buffers for maintenance along that include, bike paths and parking lots and that sort of thing. And of course, the visual aspect. We want to make sure that this work you're doing can be, easily seen by the public. And so go ahead and do the next slide, Rob. We also talked about woodland restoration. So this is also at Walnut Creek Regional Park. Urbandale has a really nice stand of woodlands that we have documented, I think, back since the 30s when we had, the aerial views. This woodland area was still there, and it's still almost the exact same size as it was in the 30s, which is really cool. And within that, there was another study done by Drake University that's just wrapping up, where one of the professors there has done a vegetative assessment and identified some rare species in this woodland. So that is really cool. And so with a lot of woodland areas, especially in central Iowa, the invasive honeysuckle plant has a chance to drown out some of these native and special plants because of their aggressive growth. They can shade out a lot of different plants, as well as they're not great for stormwater management because they have shallow roots and can contribute to erosion if we get large rains. So a great recommendation would be to restore these woodlands by removing all of that invasive honeysuckle and allowing the canopy to be opened up a little bit. So you'd keep the majority of, the nice big oak trees, but get rid of those understory brush honeysuckle. And that allows some of those spring ephemeral plants, as well as some more plants that are suitable for a woodland understory to come through. And so this is a 57-acre swath, so it's a big area. And I know that the Parks and Rec Department have already been doing some honeysuckle removal through here. And so it's something that you could feasibly tackle all at once, or you could do in a phased approach. But I didn't mention this before, but with prairie and woodland restoration, it's one of those things where the invasive plant growth can be so aggressive that it's important to continuously work on chopping those down and maintaining what you have so that you can stay ahead of that problem. So when we have these sites, when we identified these sites, we thought, this is something that the Parks and Rec Department could probably handle in their everyday activities. And then Polk County's here to, support them if they need us to. All right, next slide. And then finally, we identified a couple of sites for stream restoration. This is by far the most challenging thing that any community can do for the goals of this project, simply because you're working a lot of times within confined spaces because of urban development, but then also there aren't a lot of funding opportunities for stream restoration like there are for things like prairie restoration. However, we still wanted to identify them for Urbandale as potential projects down the line if the opportunity and funding ever arises. So we identified these two areas based once again on the fact they're on public property. They're wide open spaces, so you should be able to get equipment in there to do some bank restoration. And then also, as you can see with the map on the top, that is graph that symbolizes where erosion has occurred as well as where deposition has occurred. So basically showing how the sediment has moved from the banks of certain parts of the stream and has redeposited on other banks of the stream. And if you let that go for too long, sometimes it can damage infrastructure, such as, sanitary lines or maybe, roads or bike paths. So, and also with these, significant tree removal may be required in order to do some of these restorations. So that's something the city would have to keep in mind too. All right, and I will let Rob wrap it up I'll do one more slide, sorry. So then we have holding water on the landscape recommendations. So these are the larger types of projects like wetlands that can hold a bunch of stormwater. And so that's great for, communities downstream, but also these special types of wetlands can do a lot of managing pollutants as well. So there's a variety: stormwater wetlands, pumped wetlands, which includes pumping water out of a creek through a wetland system and then dumping it back into the same creek. And the wetland allows filtration of pollutants. And then oxbows. You already have some oxbow restorations at a couple of your parks. And so just making sure that those stay full of water so that they can do some nutrient treatment as well are recommendations that we have in this plan. All right, Rob, I'll let you finish up.
And I get unmiked. All right, thank you, Cassie. Yeah, so one of the things that we are offering to some of the WMA members are our watershed services. Those could be anything from helping out with fundraising from projects like this, grant writing for projects like this. We can help with engineering oversight and design oversight, construction oversight. And recently we are adding vegetation establishment and management to our services that we're offering to some of the WMA members. So for instance, like Cassie was saying, prairie restoration can be a bit of a headache and it's a unique challenge that has a lot of moving parts to it, that we have somebody on staff who has a lot of experience establishing prairies and managing those throughout the years. Same with woodland restoration. We have some capabilities here at the county to help with some of that understory management, do some of that clearing. We're offering those services to WMA members moving forward, and including assessments like this for other WMA members moving forward. Also included in the assessment are a couple of priority opportunities that we made mention of, this kind of being like a menu option for this assessment, where we have a bunch of different options that list out some of the benefits and what they would do to contribute to the goals of that 5-year implementation plan through the WMA. So for instance, we have a stormwater wetland in Walnut Creek Regional Park that we would assist with, the woodland restoration, the oak savanna that Cassie had brought up, and then the pumped wetland at just north of Waterford Road up there would be a water quality wetland. So using our services and some of the funding mechanisms we're very familiar with, we are confident we'd be able to check all of these boxes to get all the goals knocked out for Urbandale at, as you can see there, the cost estimate over half a price reduction from what our cost estimates would be using some of our funding mechanisms. Additionally, in the appendix of the assessment, we have some specific grant and funding opportunities. We have some tried and true vegetation restoration methods that have been used successfully by Polk County Conservation. We have some greenway or floodplain potential property acquisitions, and finally some previous Urbandale studies and plans, just so that they're all kind of there in one place within our assessment. So in conclusion, I would like to thank you guys for your time and the opportunity to do this assessment. Like I said, you guys were kind of our guinea pig, so thank you for that. This has really helped us establish kind of a model we would like to use moving forward with some of the other communities. And we're hoping that this assessment will lead to a good partnership between the county and Urbandale moving forward. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to bring up, we're here for it.
This is Amy. I just have one question. Is there any time limits that we need to be aware of for the grants that you are considering that would help fund something of this nature?
More so kind of yearly, I would say, time limits. We don't have a lot of the grant and funding mechanisms that we use are available to us year in and year out. It's just, are we going to hit that deadline for this year's grant, basically? Cassie, you have anything you'd like to expand on there?
Yeah, we have several grants that we've used in the past for different projects, and they usually open up every year. So for example, the one that we use the most is called the Water Quality Initiative Grant through the Iowa Department of Ag. And that one opens up around Thanksgiving. And then it closes around February so that projects can begin, in March. And then those are usually for projects that can be completed in like a year to a year and a half. But there's other ones out there too.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. I'm sure you guys realize that Walnut Creek Regional Park and Waterford Road are in Dallas County. Is that at all problematic? As the lone Dallas County resident on the council, I appreciate that Polk County gives us more love than Dallas County. But is that going to be problematic with any of these things that you've talked about going forward?
No, we are not necessarily beholden to the county as a property or as a boundary. We are working a lot as within the watershed. So our boundaries kind of expand outside of the county, probably a little bit more than some of the other counties in the area or some of our other departments here. We have done some work in Story County, we've done some work in Boone County, and we will be making a big push to implement stormwater storage in the headwaters of Walnut in Dallas County moving forward in the next couple of years. Just like you guys have some goals to hit in the next 5 years, as does Polk County have some of those same goals to hit within the next 5 years. So with most of Polk County kind of being built out a lot within the Walnut watershed, we will be doing a lot of our work within Dallas County.
Because Pat's our go-to on these sort of issues, but because what happens in Dallas County, Boone County, Story County flows downstream into Polk County, it's
Totally
important. Okay.
Yep, I agree
think
100%, and that's one of the reasons.
I'm finally getting it.
Yeah, honestly, one of our big goals is to attack the headwaters of Walnut. We have the abilities to work outside of your guys' city boundaries a lot easier than you guys do, and making some of those impacts to the headwaters have a larger impact downstream to some of these built out urban communities. So I can't think off the top of my head. Cassie, what are we at? Like 60 acre feet within the 5 years, I think, something around there that we've got to hit for our goal, where your guys is closer to 25. So we've got some ambitious goals on our end to hit, and a lot of that will be happening in Dallas County in the headwaters.
Yeah, so between the goals that we've set for every community, Polk County, we have our own goal within the same watershed. And so everything will come together for, we have an actual goal we want to hit as a collective group too within this plan.
When you think of the three suggestions of areas of improvement that you outlined, is there one or more that really become priority for you to reach the collective goal?
I wouldn't say necessarily a priority. There's some lower hanging fruit we believe that's out there. Let's see here if I can get this to go back. There we go. I know Cassie talked about the Oxbow enhancement. We think that would be pretty low hanging fruit there. We think we could get pretty good funding from IDOLS. Basically, the hole's already in the ground there. We would potentially install a small solar pump out there that is just keeping water moving through that oxbow and passively cleaning out any sediment or nitrates that are flowing through Walnut. So I think that's a pretty good low hanging fruit that could be done that accomplishes some good goals. And then also, like Cassie mentioned, the woodland restoration is something we think is a really unique ecosystem for the Des Moines area. It's an oak savanna that's been there for, hundreds of years probably. Like Cassie said, we've got aerial photography going back 100 years that shows a pretty similar shape and acre size to what we're seeing now. So it's been pretty untouched other than the invasive honeysuckle that's kind of running rampant on the understory in there, which in turn is not allowing any more oaks to really have any sunlight or any of those native plants that Cassie was talking about. They're kind of getting choked out with some of that honeysuckle that tends to grow very early and drop its leaves very late. So it's a tough plant to combat, but we're working on it throughout the county as we speak. So I would say those are two pretty nice low hanging fruits that would be the best bang for your buck.
All right. Any further questions or comments? We're at the end of the hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much for the great work.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help throughout the process.
All right.
Thanks,
With
guys.
that, we are at the end of our agenda. So we'll adjourn the meeting and thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. So thanks, everybody.